How's it going, guys? Bobby here, and if you are interested in the Zhiyun Weebill lab and you are looking for some example footage with no stabilization and no slow motion, then this video is for you. I recently put out a comprehensive review of the Zhiyun Weebill lab, so if you haven't checked that out, I'd recommend doing so, and I'll link to it here. But one of the things that I felt like it was missing was some 24 frames per second footage that was not stabilized. I shot most of the test footage for that in 60 frames a second because I was just getting used to it, and I was on a run with my dog as my test footage, which I felt lent itself well to a little bit slower footage. But I think it's important to see examples straight out of camera without anything applied to it in post. So I want to run through some clips here. While going through this footage, I want to bring out a couple more things that I would add to the cons list and things that I've just struggled with a little bit since using it more. The first thing is using the ZY Play app, which in itself looks very polished and I think would work very well and has worked in other times that I've used it. But I'm trying to do a firmware update for this thing, which it apparently requires, and I can't skip it. But after I download it to my phone, it just tells me to keep connecting to the Wi-Fi put out by the gimbal, which I am connected to, and it just won't push it to the gimbal. So I'm sure there's a way around this. I'm sure I'll figure out eventually, but it is giving me a little bit of problems. Now, it is still usable during that. I just can't upgrade the firmware. And because of that, I can't actually get into the gimbal to change any settings. Another thing that's been bugging me is how to mount my monitor. Now, this has two specific spots on it to mount the monitor, which I put in the pros category on my review, but I'm finding it a little more difficult. On our original crane, we use a clamp, which as much as I hate using, it works very well, and it provides a second place to put my hand on the right side, which I love. One of the issues with this is that I can put it in the left hole here, but when I do so, first of all, it's on the left side, which I do not like. And also this drilled hole, it goes all the way into the battery compartment and there's nothing blocking it. So the first time that I screwed my monitor in, I kept screwing it until it was tight, which actually ended up hitting the batteries and pushing them off of their contacts, and the gimbal would not power on. Since then, I've tried to also mount it on this back mount, but the issue with that is that that takes away your underslung mode, which is one of the big features of this gimbal. Also, it's difficult because you have to have a lot of angles on like a magic arm to get it off to the right where I want it. So as I mentioned, I really like having the arm of the monitor as a second handle for my right hand, which is where I prefer to put kind of a secondary weight. And I can't really get that set up with this gimbal. I have been using the foot of the tripod that it comes with, and that has worked decently well, but it's not quite the same. Another thing that I noticed since using it more is that I found myself with dead motors, and I was worried that this was because they weren't strong, and that is not the case. These motors are incredibly strong, and I've had no issues there. What I found out was happening was that the locks for each motor were actually a little bit loose, and so through filming with it, eventually, specifically one of them, would gradually work its way back to being locked. And as soon as it passed a certain point, it was recognized electronically by the gimbal and it would kill the motors. So I realized this is a safety feature, and it's a good safety feature to have because you don't want to put too much strain on the motors by having a locked motor. But the switches themselves seem to be coming a little bit loose for me. It's nothing major, it only happened a couple times, but it is worth mentioning. So there it is, guys. I hope you found this example footage useful. And while I did bring up a few things to be wary of in this video since using it more, definitely check out my comprehensive review because I go over way more pros of this amazing little compact gimbal in that video. If you have any questions or want to know anything specifically about this gimbal, please leave it in the comments down below and I'll make sure to get to them. And as always, I'd love to have you like this video and subscribe for more videos like this in the future.